first, so right here. Hey, boys and girls, we're going to go over the debate that Andrew had yesterday with Peter Paleologos.
Yep.
So, and we invited Peter. I hope he shows up because we got questions.
You got some explaining to do, Peter.
Explaining to do. Anyway.
A part two, but also not quite part two.
Yeah. But before that happens, I found something very amusing on Jay Bundy's channel today, and he started out, and thank God his mic was muted for the first 4 minutes too, just like mine was yesterday, so I don't feel as bad because I'm in the company of giant.
Maybe he did that just for you.
He might.
Maybe he was thinking, speed. I don't want him to feel so bad.
Yeah,
I'll just go silent.
Yeah, it could be. It could be that he was trying
sympathetic silence.
Yeah,
and before we go on, thank you everyone, the audience, for joining us today. Always a pleasure to see you around.
All four of them.
Yep.
Yeah. Our
loyal subjects.
All five of y'all.
Just five of y'all. Yeah, thank you. Yep. Well, they're afraid of our science shows, so they prefer our toilet humor shows like yesterday.
Toilet shows, yeah.
Toilet shows, but yeah, we were talking about that. I'm not sure. I was quite disturbed by the stream yesterday, but it was a good time overall. And there was some funny stuff, but I did not like how it ended, and I just don't want that shit to happen. So from now on, I think when anybody gets into a shouting match, I'm kicking them both in the backstage. I'm gonna. I don't care who they are. Even if it's me, I will even throw myself back then. And then I will explain.
You hear Speed give Scott executive powers to kick you if needed.
Exactly. You can kick me, Scott, if I get,
I've actually had that power all along.
You have. Oh. Yeah. You have not abused it. I'm so impressed.
Well, yeah. Well, because you just pop yourself back in.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, and then go, what the hell are you doing, Scott?
Yeah, or I could come in with one of Danny's sock accounts.
That's true too.
Yeah, I have all those. Anyway, okay, so let's play this. This is curious, and I'd like to know where this probably arose in a side chat somewhere or on some stream. I'd like to know the source of this REBEKAH thing.
He say on this show, and that is that I'm scared. I'm very scared. I'm scared. I'm very afraid.
I mean, my heart's beating. My hands are shaking. My
heart's beating. My hands are shaking. I'm nervous, y'all. I'm scared. I'm down on my knees at night. Myron, the flying man, please send me your blessings and protections. In the name of the Darwin, the Dawkins, and the Christopher Hitchens, Myron, I need you to protect me because I heard that REBEKAH Davis is coming for me. I heard that REBEKAH Davis is calling me out. She's telling people I'm afraid to debate her about evolution, and I don't know what to do, Myron. I'm scared. She said I'm scared, and the truth is I'm scared. I'm so afraid. I don't know what I'm going to do about REBEKAH Davis. She's too smart. It's too terrifying. It's too terrifying, Myron. I'm scared. REBEKAH Davis called me out. I'm scared. What if she takes my title? What if she becomes the new United States champion of word wrestling entertainment, Myron? I'm so scared. It's too terrifying. So we'll talk about that because apparently I'm too afraid to debate REBEKAH Davis. I'm motherfucking scared. I'm terrified. And apparently I've been running like a chicken shit scared to debate her about evolution because we all know Darwin was what? Sitting on some bullshit. Now let's start this fucked up ass show.
Okay.
God damn it. I said start.
Anyway,
Okay.
that was it.
I mean, I applaud the humor there, but
Yeah.
if he's actually trying to make a response, I don't think that's quite the right approach. To be
Oh
honest.
no, he's basically calling her out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
because he's wanted to have a talk with Rebecca since he met her. So he's very anxious to talk to her, and he has been. But
Well,
apparently,
as protracted as it was, as long as it went, I think he's really scared. He sounded really sincerely scared.
it sounds scared. But I wonder if Rebecca said that he was afraid to debate her somewhere, or somebody suggested that. I don't know what the source of it, but what it is. But I found it very amusing. This, if we can keep it at this light level, and not, because we are playing with each other at some level, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is all fun, and when it's not fun anymore, we need to quit doing it, right?
Right.
When it becomes a real serious, we want to kill each other matter, like Praise's stream, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and I hope that Rebecca takes the humor I threw at her yesterday, which was, I really feel bad about it with the yes thing, but Rebecca, you have to understand that I'm a little OCD, and I kind of got the devil in me, and it just comes out, and I really can't help it. I think I'm possessed. I'm possessed. Okay, I'm possessed by a demon, right? That's my excuse.
Thanks for handing the fundamentalists a meme.
Okay, I'm
You're
possessed.
gonna just clip that out and go, okay, he admits it. He's got the devil in him. He worships the devil. All these atheists worship the devil.
Okay, I'm possessed, man.
Oh yeah, I kind of
Okay.
believe it now.
Apparently, Chris Peacock is saying Rebecca said he was scared at the end of one of her streams.
Okay, I want to see that
helps a little bit.
quote. I want to see that quote, Chris. If you can retrieve that stream for me.
Yes.
Because
Thank
I
you,
can't
Chris.
believe that Rebecca would say, she had to be poking him too, trying to get him to talk
I'm
to her.
sure.
Let's hope so.
They will get together on Jay Bundy's channel, and it will be awesome. And probably short. I don't know.
Well, I don't want this to sound too harsh, but let's hope if they meet, Jay can teach her some stuff about evolution a little bit.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
that remains to
Don't
be
take
seen.
that the wrong way.
I was hoping. Yeah, I finally watched her. I never watched her channel video for evidence, or what is it called?
Examining
evolution. And
Yeah.
I'm kind of disturbed by that video, to tell you the truth. A little bit disturbed by that video.
Hey,
She said
AJ.
it breaks her heart that people believe in the science. And I'm like, okay.
Same old.
It breaks her heart that people believe what is printed in all the textbooks and taught in all the universities. And I don't know. I'm just.
I don't know if AJ's being humorous here. He says he wants an invite. So I don't know.
Wait,
Peter doesn't seem to be showing up. Well, maybe he might later, but do we want to
we're
invite AJ?
Yeah, we're doing a sciencey examination of the stream. So anyway, so are there any clips that I should play, or should we just start trying to talk about his? So apparently the idea is that, God, I wish he was here, that right now we have diverse groups or clades of animals, right, that are at the top, and they do not fill the morphological space between the groups. Like, okay, cats and dogs supposedly were separate created kinds, right? So they're claiming that the morphological space between cats and dogs is not filled. Is that accurate? Am I portraying him accurately?
Yeah, I'd have to rewatch what he said. He was talking about, like, why aren't all these different factors that could be invoked at that as well? And
there aren't an undersized.
Whoops! Oh, that was you. I'm
my
sorry.
dreadful voice.
I was playing. Oh, I know everybody thinks their own voice is dreadful. You'll get used to it after a while. Of course, I still haven't.
You know, I'm a little more accepting everything. I think everybody's voice is gross.
Yeah.
So
It's a fact.
I would like to say to Animate Place in the chat, I do thank you for your constructive criticism. I also do feel that, at least in terms of rhetoric, Peter was a bit more fluent in that. But that's, again, probably because he has a lot more experience than me in terms of this kind of arena. So, but thank you for your
that's just something you have to develop.
Comment. Yep.
Oh no, AJ, I'm sorry. It's not that you don't know about science. It's just that yesterday I had a shit show with a full room. And so I have
Don't you have his
PTSD.
email?
Yeah, I do. But I have PTSD. So I have 3 people already in the room, and I'm already freaking the hell out. I mean, I prefer that all 3 of us left and we just had dead air. But inviting another person and then somebody else is going to come along and they're going to get pissed off and make it Midnight will be along and then Top Dog and like we just want to we want to keep the conversation where we aren't being interrupted a lot because we got a lot to go over, I think.
Well,
So,
then again, AJ is kind of more an expert on this debate thing than
me,
for example.
I'm going to make one fucking exception for AJ.
Right. Just one exception, and then let's keep it there. Because I think AJ could help here.
Well, you know, if you want to keep it to 3, I can just go into the backstage and manage the side chat.
Scott, I don't even notice when you're around.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Oh, I agree. Animated Place, it's really especially with the Hovind fans out there. It gets super annoying.
Yeah. So AJ, you are the one exception. I'm pulling you in.
Do not abuse your privileges here.
Notice how AJ can make those sad doe eyes even when he's not on screen. It's like he can. I just felt the whiny,
You insulting me?
Who, AJ?
Yeah, no.
I'm talking about AJ. How's that insulting you?
We're insulting him.
We're insulting him.
Yeah.
Hey, Dave.
There'd be no problems, AJ. There'd be no problems.
I'm not going to bring up how somebody insulted me yesterday, am I, Scott? You know I'm not going to do it, right? Because I have all this self-control. I have so much self-control.
Yes, you have the most formidable frontal lobe of any human being.
Yes, I have the override power. Okay, I think this is where it started, where he goes over. But if there's an earlier session where he explains it, it seemed to me that I didn't quite ever get a real good handle on what he was saying. Where did he bring up he brought up the little boxes later. The Brahmanology boxes that they like. I'd like to know how they derive those graphs. I don't understand those graphs. Do you?
It's hard to describe because it's, like I said, it's very inconsistent. The different they kind of like cherry pick some methods from actual phylogenetics, and in certain places, as probably most of us here know, when it doesn't agree with humans are separate, the Bible is true, they kind of discard it. So it's hard to explain that way because there is no single method that they use.
Ozzy's here. Hi, Ozzy.
Hey, Ozzy.
Anyway, let's see. Okay. I have, what is it, Todd Wood's book on Brahmanology. And he goes through and he has a whole bunch of graphs like that. And I think maybe he even has those little box graphs. But he never adequately explains the morphological traits that he is drawing his results from. And he uses nothing but phenotypic traits.
Yeah.
And somewhere I'm sure that they have supplemental data where they tell you what the traits are, but I don't know. Anyway.
Well, it gets difficult because oftentimes instead of what are called character-based methods where they're looking at individual characters and what kind of tree topology you end up with from that. They're looking at overall, or what's called phonetic, these distance-based methods.
Yeah.
And that may be one reason why the characters aren't exactly listed, although they should probably still be listed anyway.
Right. Well, how do you take an elephant hind limb and a dog hind limb? How do you develop a morphological space between those two things? I don't. Did they go down to the muscle level, to the bones, to the fossa, to the attachments to the bones? Do they? I mean, all of that is done. You have to have a metric, right? I'd like to know what the metric is.
Yeah, I lack the expertise on that, unfortunately.
Oh my God, it's spooky.
Spooky.
Scared the shit out of me. Gave me a start. My heart just leapt. Yes. Have you already added him, or okay? Somebody's got to add
him. Hello, AJ.
Hello.
Hey, AJ. Thanks for joining.
Hey,
yeah,
AJ.
sure.
Let's see.
I apologize for whining my way in. Is it okay? Is it okay if I clear something up really quickly? Just about the thing with Dessel Drace.
Oh yeah, that was, you were joking, right?
Like, I was joking.
Everything was tongue in cheek, and just about everybody I know picked up on that.
Yeah, and that's what we were trying to tell Dessel, that that's a bad. He shouldn't have used your name, because that's a bad. I mean, if he had come up with a general example, but then I think Dessel was just having a bad day, but he's really mad at me right now.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't provide the source to what he was saying.
I know that was problematic, and I had a hell of a time finding it because you wouldn't give it to me.
Well, I didn't know what you were talking about for a while until Midnight told me what was actually happening, and I was like, "You can't be serious!" Like,
yeah, I found it.
But yeah, then I immediately found it because I knew what he was actually, what he had actually said. But what had happened was, and I apologize, I've already derailed the stream, which I said I wouldn't do, but Amy, I was on Amy's stream. And there was a theist in the side chat who was talking to Amy or saying something, and Amy was messing with him.
Yeah.
And she was saying, well, I'm bi, so that means I'm attracted to men and women. And then she winks at the camera. And then I said, because I was on it, I said, Amy, well, personally, I think heterosexuality is disgusting.
Right.
And it was if you know me and you know my style of content or being on camera, I'm usually not very serious unless I need to be.
Right.
And that was a joke. I get it what he's saying. But at the same time, even if I did mean that, it's still nowhere near as bad as what Matt Powell said.
Right.
And what I was saying was a parody of what people say about gay people. I was flipping it. I was just flipping it around on them.
I know. Yeah. And that was obvious to all of us. And Dessel, you got it wrong. You were having a bad day. And we were basically defending AJ rather than your argument. We didn't even get a chance to get into it. And if you're out there, come on back, please. We need you on this channel. Feel real bad about all that.
Yeah, not to mention that Dessel has said way worse things than anything I've ever said about trans people.
Well, of course, he's naturally wrong. That is his nature, Dessel.
Well, he's an idiot.
No, I agree with a ton of stuff Dessel says, and he knows abiogenesis, and he knows a lot about it. But he does put his foot in his mouth occasionally.
Yeah. When it comes to social issues, he is.
I don't want to even discuss it. So okay. Moving on. So should we play this little party? I think this is where he gets into the disparity.
I'm guessing, AJ, you didn't see the debate I did, probably, right?
Yeah, can you guys just give me the context of this real quick? Like,
Yeah. So me and Peter had basically a debate: is universal common ancestry true? I took the affirmative, of course. We kind of went into some stuff about nested hierarchies, baraminology, and what pretty much what Speed's gonna play here in a bit.
So yeah. Peter, he is an evolutionist, but he's also kind of a conservative. What is he religious?
He's a young Earth creationist, right?
Oh, he is.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I thought he accepted like fossils and evolution.
He does accept a lot about primate evolution, but it's hard to. It's hard to pin him down as exactly. I mean, he disagrees with almost everything SFT comes up with.
So he's a younger creationist, and he accepts human evolution.
I don't know if he does. He
well with younger creationists, usually the reason that they don't like evolution is specifically because of human evolution. Because if you take Genesis literally, I don't think you should take Genesis literally, but it directly contradicts Genesis. If you say that humans had ancestors that were like Lucy, Homo habilis, Australopithecines, because in Genesis, humans start off fully formed, looking like we do now, with very little body hair, walking upright. So those two things are in conflict. So to me, that was always the sticking point for these creationists.
Well, there's another version that I've heard some Christians say that basically, okay, we evolved from primates, but then God breathes life 6,000 years ago into an Adam and Eve primate that had evolved into the human form. And basically he breathed in rationality and soul and consciousness and all of that. So it was sort of that was the miracle. He didn't, make Adam and Eve out of dirt. He made Adam and Eve out of evolved primates. And I don't know if Peter agrees with that, but that's just one way. That's one way out for Christians to make the Adam and Eve story work and evolution work at the same time, right? Because then they deny nothing about it.
As a Christian, the very last step before me just saying, forget all this, I accept evolution as is, in the scientific consensus, it was some sort of idea about Adam and Eve being a special creation or having their uniqueness, somehow breathed into them or whatever by God. So it seems a common thing just before somebody begins to accept the theory of evolution in its completeness.
Yeah, I think it's just, it'd be a good way to be a Christian to just not deny science. That's just me, though.
Whatever his position, I do and still appreciate Peter's politeness in this debate and kind of the how honestly he takes these topics at least at certain points.
And the other thing about Peter that it really surprises me is that he actually backs his shit up with some reasoning, all the way back.
Right. Yeah.
Even if it is flawed at some level, he is really, really brilliant, and he's very different than the X that
it's a good different, basically.
Yeah, it is. Anyway,
it's not just a bunch of nuts.
If you they want to find a way to justify this cognitive dissonance of Genesis and accepting evolution, but I feel like if you just take Genesis as an allegory, then that just makes it so much easier. Of course, personally, I think people should just be atheists, because then you don't have to worry about that. You can let go of all this fucking religious baggage and all this stuff, and not have to worry about this stuff that is really difficult for people and keeps them up at night. And I'm just thinking, like, you're worrying about something that's not real. Like, I don't know.
And even if you're a Christian, all you have to accept is the miracle of Christ. You don't have to accept any of them. Everything else can be allegorical. And and that would just be the easiest way to live, and just not think about all that shit in too much detail, because how do they know how God did it? I mean, who are they to presume they know how God did the universe, right? Just from their interpretation of the book. That seems like hubris, and I think God would strike them down for that. They're going to have to account for that when they get to the pearly gates.
Right. But I think it's almost impossible to avoid that people who believe in the Bible are going to have their political and social opinions influenced like that. For example, Peter is pro-life, which I strongly disagree with him on. I've had conversations on Twitter with him, and when it comes to science, I think he backs his shit up, but his arguments for that are terrible. I don't think he backs that up. But I promise I won't go there. I'll leave it out for this stream because I don't want to derail things more than I already have.
Yeah, there's a couple things we need to talk about, and one of them is his first thing was that, okay, fine, you have the phylogenetic signal, but that doesn't matter because the phylogenetic signal works on the creationist model and it works on the evolution model, and all he is really saying there is that I can make up anything I want and it's going to go along with what I see in reality, right?
Right. That's kind of the point I was trying to make at some time during it was just because you can have a model that's compatible with the data you have doesn't mean it's a inherently better or even equally likely explanation. Like it's kind of a general rule of thumb. The more you tweak your model to make it still work, the less kind of workable it is, to be honest.
Let me try to flesh out his position. He's saying, okay, we can't tell from the phylogeny, so let's not even discuss that. Let's discuss this other thing, disparity and diversity, right? That's what he was saying. He was saying that the phylogeny isn't going to tell us which one is true. And it's like, okay, we're not claiming that the phylogeny... He should know that we're never claiming that the phylogeny tells us or proves evolution. That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is coming up with a theoretical model that accounts for the data, right? That's what we're doing. We're not trying to prove anything like he is,
right?
But I guess we are trying to disprove young Earth creationists if we had a good way to do it.
I get your point. We're not 100% absolutely trying to show that this is the case or anything like that.
Yeah,
or that this is the gotcha for our position, basically.
If I could add something to what Andrew said a second ago, is that in science, you were looking for, I think it's called the most parsimonious explanation of something.
Right, exactly.
Where you have the least, is it more parsimonious or less that's good? It's you have the least, and you have the least amount of assumptions in your explanation. If you have two maybe competing theories or hypotheses for explaining a given phenomenon, then you want the least. You want the one with the least assumptions.
Let's see. Dr. Dan is here.
I apologize. I called Dr. Dan Dave because his thing looked similar to Dave's a second ago. So sorry.
I will make another exception.
I do appreciate that.
I'll make another exception for Dr. Dan if he's free later. So
if we're still going,
and then I'll make another exception for X and Y and Z and A and B. Okay, so we got to get the point.
Well, if we can at least get the meat in the first part of it, then we can see how we're doing.
Okay, Scott, I'm relying on you to quit hiding me.
Who is debating here? Who is debating who?
Andrew on the bottom, that's a rational empiricist, and then Peter Brummel on the right.
And Rebecca's a mod?
Yep.
Yeah, and she should be on the bottom, but Rebecca.
Okay, I was experimenting and I screwed up the thing, so you fix it back, Speed.
Fix what? Oh.
I mean, I like that I'm bigger, because I love the attention.
There you go. Now you're small. Okay.
Just make me full screen,
Yeah, no worries, Dr. Dan. If you can join.
It's the AJ show.
Wine, AJ. Wine. Okay, let's play some video and see what we got here.
Hey, I'm a celebrity now, so.
This mass extinction event, to explain this, might explain something that happened at the KPG event, but that wasn't really what I was talking about, right? I was talking about a lot of these events happened much earlier and are not correlated with environmental change. So bringing that up as an explanation doesn't really solve the problem that I presented.
Okay, not correlated with environmental change. How does he know that, and what is he talking about? That's the first part.
Well, it kind of tripped me up a little bit because later on he talked about how there were certain ecological factors that his model might also have to take into account.
Right. Okay.
So it was kind of, it was weird to me because it seemed like we were both saying the same thing almost. Not exactly, but we were both kind of using the same tool at our disposal, but we weren't admitting it.
Yeah. Anyway, okay.
What did he say?
So
what? He
Said
said, what did he say about the KT extinction? I missed that.
Yeah. What the hell? What did that have? Was that from a prior conversation, or was?
Yeah,
Like,
you
what was
no,
that?
I think I brought that up actually.
Okay. So let's see.
Or
But he's-
kind of as an
That
example.
was really what I was talking about, right? I was talking about a lot of these events happen much earlier and are not correlated with environmental change.
I
So
don't know.
bringing that up as an explanation doesn't really solve the problem that I presented.
So what events were you talking about specifically in your presentation?
Let's see. I'll pull some up here. Could you add that, Rebecca, to the stream? So here are some acrotarchs, gastropods, bryozoans. All of these, of course, very early in the Cambrian or Ordovician. Insects, angiosperms, and then ecological carnivores. I can't remember exactly what organisms they were talking about. That's a kind of broad description. But my point is, all of these, as they said in the paper, let's see, where was it? Yeah, they said it's often equivocal.
Well, I would also like to note that it isn't just mass extinctions that can explain these events. Say, for example, you're an organism. You're invading a new environment. Whatever changes you happen to have, variations you happen to have, that allow you to conquer that environment, so to speak, more easily than your competitors is going to be fixed relatively quickly in the population. So it isn't necessarily just extinction events. Adaptive radiations often are after mass extinction events, but so
you're bringing up an ecologically undersaturated environment where you don't have enough competition for the food sources, for example, so that you could radiate very quickly. But as this paper brings up, that is once again inferred. You don't have evidence that in these specific examples that I brought up that is actually what happened.
Okay.
So once again,
we don't have evidence that those things happened, but the evidence that those things happened would have been the rapid expansion into a diverse expansion into an environment, right? That would have been the evidence. So, I mean, he's saying we don't have evidence. Is he claiming that there was never any geological change or change on the Earth? Like continents weren't dividing up and slamming back together. And
things are constantly shifting.
Yeah. I mean, there were millions of different opportunities for different ecological niches. So I don't understand why he's claiming that we have to have evidence, but he's showing this.
I mean, heck, you can have environments within environments, so to speak. Like you can have within a forest divided by a river. On one side of the river, you have a particular forest area, but within that forest area, you have a specific tree. And within that specific tree, you have different heights of the tree where, okay, this particular insect is adapted to this height and whatnot. So it's not as it's even more complex than what you're saying, and it can account for these things is what I was trying to say.
I think that it makes sense that when you have an extinction event, you've now totally turned the food chain upside down. You've sort of created a vacuum, a power vacuum, where now you've changed which species are now going to be able to adapt. So you're going to have ones that thrive because they no longer have predators,
right?
And those are going to speciate really rapidly. So I think that makes sense. Is he denying that happens, or is he saying that there's another explanation?
I don't know.
I'm a little confused, honestly.
Yeah.
And as
it's
we
a
all
little vague. Yeah. or it's actually interesting, AJ, you bring up the no predators thing, because that actually brings up another example of that, which is rapid speciation on colonization of an island, for example, like the Galapagos finches. Like those are some great examples of rapid diversification, what you might call disparity.
And
so it's not like we don't know how to explain these things.
Part of that was because of a natural disaster, like hurricanes blew these finches to different islands, and then they had different seed types, different trees, insects with harder shells or soft shells. So you had birds, finches with thicker, thinner, longer, shorter beaks that thrived on the different islands. And this is sort of what Darwin discovered. But the inciting event was something that was able to move these birds around because they're so tiny and they're a very low body density. So they were just blown all around. So there are lots of different things that can cause things like this because the environments are always going to be changing. Sometimes quickly and sometimes really slowly.
Right. Yeah, it's not constant, basically.
So he's referring to this paper here. And the summary is what he's quoting from.
Okay.
So a persistent feature of many evolutionary radiations is more rapid increase in morphological disparity. Okay. So then taxonomic diversity. So what the hell does that mean exactly? So morphological disparity between different species? Is that what he's talking about? Between different clades? More rapid increase in morphological disparity than... Okay, that is exactly what we would expect looking later on. Okay, when
I think what it's referring to is like say within the bird lineage, it's still within the bird lineage, but they've diversified to a point that they look almost nothing like each other. So
Right.
So maybe that's what he's talking about.
I could be wrong. I could be wrong here, but the way that we first started classifying animals before we knew about genetics was their morphology, just based on what they looked like. And then when they discovered genetics, we were able to realize that it goes much deeper than that, and we had to move a lot of animals around that were actually more closely related than we realized because of that they looked different, but they were genetically actually much closer than we realized. So it's possible that the distinction between morphological and taxonomic might be that, but I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Okay, but it's something basically if there was a common ancestor population, right, that broke into a new ecological niche, like a new system, like tetrapods suddenly started, walking on land or whatever. Then what we would see at that point is one population, and then that population would grow, and at some point that population would become divided. If that population never got divided, then there would be basically gene transfer between all members of that population, and the population would consistently stay the same. Like all humans are pretty much the same because we interbreed, we exchange genes. There's gene transfer between all of us, right? But if we become separated by a continent splitting apart, then you're going to see morphological diversity, or you're going to see what he's calling disparity, right? And those groups are going to develop out into new, basically separate branches and acquire more and more changes between them. And if they run into different environments, it'll happen even faster, right? So what is it? It's almost like he's conflating, extant species with the fossil record. And I think he's more looking at the fossil record, but this paper,
right,
is they go on about crinoids, and how come he didn't send you his papers prior to your debate? We could have,
not sure. He said he would, but I don't, or it doesn't seem like he's gotten around to it just yet.
Could I just say really quickly? I think this is just me personally, but I think that this is really bad form in a debate to have slides where you just have a wall of text that's a quote from a paper, because what I would personally do is pick out specific quotes or have parts on the slide explaining what it's actually saying. Because when I see a slide like that, my eyes just glaze over, and I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, what is ecologically undersaturated? What does that mean? I don't know. Me dumb. I have dumb brain. So
that there is basically there are a lot of resources available for, like the resources are not going to be a problem, so it's not saturated. So if an ecological niche saturates, then you have enough different groups of animals eating all the food. There's no more food, so it's saturated. But if it's not ecologically saturated, then we would expect these animals to basically keep breeding and eating their food. But if they were all together in one group, there is no reason for that population to diversify, right? Unless they were separated. And so I don't really know what they're complaining about exactly in this paper. I know he mentioned something with Lewontin. Lewontin had a quote a while back, and he was saying, our problem is not the problem for evolution is not explaining how we have the species we have today, but our problem is explaining why we don't have every species in between. Like, we don't have every step of species between a cat and a dog and a lamb. There should be a lamb cat and a dog lamb, and
which I gave him props for, because I do think that is a problem we need to study more carefully. But I also do think there are good explanations for at least part of it, such as
the
contingency based on the common ancestors and what features they had and what they passed on, basically.
Right. The explanation is exactly what I gave. There is a single population. They are exchanging genes. They are going to remain somewhat homogeneous. They are going to continue to change in form. And then if they become separated, if they become sliced into two different species, okay, then they are going to diverge along separate paths. And there is no reason for every morphological niche in between to be covered. How would that be? There would have to be more separate slicings, because in one cluster or population, there is gene transfer. So basically that population is going to stay homogeneous. It's not going to develop, lamb cats and cat dogs and whatever, they're going to stay separate. And by the time you get the lambs and dogs, you no longer have interbreeding, so they can occupy the same ecological niche, but they're still going to remain separate because they don't transfer genes between them, right? And they're still going to keep changing, so they're going to keep diversifying as they go along. So I don't see how this is a problem for evolution. It makes absolutely perfect sense that species and clades would cluster like that, just like galaxies cluster in the same manner. So, okay, what is the Dr. Dan is probably straightening me out here.
Yeah, I think in the side chat he was mentioning how the genome kind of evolves at different rates, which I guess I'd had considered before, but I hadn't really thought about in this context. So if he does have a moment to pop in later, I would like him to explain that a little more in depth.
Let's see, the bigger problem. The big problem was he kept going back to morphology rather than genetics. And that's what brahmanologists do.
Yeah,
they rely.
And I really focus on morphology.
Yeah, and Dr. Dan, like I was saying earlier, I don't know what their metric is for basically measuring the distance between an elephant hind limb.
I'll give you an idea, basically, because their metric is pretty much so bad that at certain points people have called them out for eyeballing not actual organisms but stuffed animals.
Oh my God! Okay.
So it's that inconsistent.
Yeah.
So
hey, Vandalia.
Hey, haven't seen you in a while.
Okay. Let's see if we can glean some more here. And I really wish Peter was here too. But maybe it'd be better to talk to Peter again after we've read all of his papers, because I'm going to clip them all and I'll download them.
Yeah, and probably a good idea.
Share them with you. So, But damn, I'm working on zinc fingers right now. I'm gonna give the creationists the 2 zinc fingers back.
Coming up with these kind of just so stories to explain why exactly we see this pattern, and that's not actually based on the fossil record.
Okay, now here's the part that absolutely drives me fucking crazy. Dr. Dan hates evolutionary psychology, but evolutionary psychology is a really good example of where they actually did come up with just those stories that didn't have a whole lot of support. But when we come up with an actual plausible scenario about how a species evolved, diverged, and split into 2 different clades, it is not a just so story. It's a hypothesis. And everything that we find is either evidence for that hypothesis or it is not. So this accusation of a just so story is just absolutely full of hot air.
If it generates expectations that we can measure, it's a testable hypothesis, basically.
Correct. Yeah. Anyway, God, that one gets and there's REBEKAH with her. It's just a story. Well, what the hell is the Bible? It's a story. Damn it.
I think you're muted, AJ.
Oh, so I think Peter's here. No,
so that's Dr. Dan.
I was just agreeing with what Speed said.
Oh,
thank you for answering my question, Dan. I don't know why this slide can't stop at that where it says undersaturated environment. Just stop there and then have an explanation like that, and it would be so much better.
Best practice is just anytime you have a technical term, just define it right away, and then everyone's on the same page. You don't have to worry about it going forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I can't stay long because I have like stuff I got to do. You can see my lighting is a little bit different because I'm doing a low-key rearrangement in my office down here, so things are a little bit of a mess. I think I cleaned up my background enough that it's not terrible, but there's
your mic is a lot better than it usually is. I mean, you have a problem with echoing usually.
Oh, do I? Well, that's good.
You're not now.
Yeah, it actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I wonder mic also.
Let's see. I wonder why that is. Let's see my audio settings. No, everything is the same as usual, but part of what I'm working on is dealing with some sound in my basement, so I actually have a sound deadening curtain covering part of my setup now,
and that's working.
That's
for you.
Probably helping.
Like I was trying to watch one of your streams today, and I like to turn on a stream and then I curl up and fall asleep.
Oh.
But your echo was waking me up, so I had to go to another stream.
I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I'm trying to make things better.
I forgive you.
Yeah,
but anyway. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have noise canceling foam like all behind my computer monitor, and that type of stuff helps. So
yeah, I'm in a half finished basement, so I don't have any of that. I don't have any of
Go ahead.
It's a big mess. So anyway, just 2 quick things that I wanted to, well, maybe 3. We'll see. First, I thought Andrew did great. Andrew, that was great. I was really impressed. Like, there was stuff that I was thinking and stuff that I was typing, and there were a couple times where you said something before I finished typing it. So like,
thank you.
Like you did really well. Like, you know this stuff, and it's really impressive to watch how you've learned this stuff over the last few years. It's been really cool to see. So first thing, just great job, really cool.
And it didn't feel that way at all points during this discussion, to be honest. But I appreciate that.
No, you really are getting this stuff. Second thing is what I just said in the chat is always bringing this back to morphology was very frustrating, because this disparity thing, right, where you have this and you have this, but as Speed was just saying, you're missing all this in between morphologically.
Right.
That doesn't matter, because it's all about the genetics, because that's what's actually inherited. You don't inherit arms and legs, you inherit sequences. And so that's the when you're comparing things and trying to figure out similarity in ancestry, it's the sequences that matter, not the shape of the organism.
Right. And that's not to say that morphology isn't entirely unreliable, but I think we would all agree that the molecular data is a lot better.
Exactly. And so that goes to the thing that you just mentioned about the parts of the genome evolving at different rates, because that's where the disparity disappears. Because, like, for example, you can look at ribosomes, right? Everything's got ribosomes and they're super conserved. So you can compare ribosomes across mammals and plants and archaea and bacteria, and you could get a meaningful comparison and make phylogenies that way. But if you try to compare like humans and chimps and gorillas, according to the ribosomes, they're basically identical and you get no meaningful information. But you can use faster evolving parts of the genome to actually compare humans and chimps and gorillas and get meaningful information out of it. So it's all just about what part of the genome you use to make your comparisons. And at any level you want to look at, you want to separate, the rodents from the primates. You want to separate the major groups of mammals from each other. You want to separate the mammals from other vertebrates. You want to separate the chordates from other eukaryotes or from other animals. You want to separate the eukaryotic supergroups. There's parts of the genome that everybody in the group in question shares that evolve at a rate that allows you to make informative comparisons. So you can't use one specific sequence and effectively distinguish the primates and also the domains from each other. But there is a sequence that you can use at every step there where you get these nice nested hierarchies. So that disparity problem where you have discrete groups with nothing in between, when you're looking at the genetics, that goes away. And that's something that Peter did not engage with, and generally creationists don't engage with it. So I don't want to say like that's Peter's fault. I think that's just like a thing for creationists that they're not engaging with that. Like that's the big thing. This whole disparity issue is a non-issue at the genetic level. It only matters at morphology. But morphology, nobody builds phylogenies with morphology anymore because we have genetics. So
at the genetic level, you can see a very small regulatory change that wields a very large morphological change.
Exactly.
And that's what they're forgetting.
So you get a smooth gradient of change genetically, and corresponding with that, this disparity morphologically.
Right. So that actually gets into two things I would like to quickly ask you, Dan, before you have to head out. So first, when he was bringing up this issue of discontinuity, do you think I was hitting the right direction? Because it seemed to me like he was comparing at one scale the unique features of a particular group to distinguish it from other groups, but ignoring kind of the same thing at the deeper branches, and how you can use that exact same logic to group things at the deeper branches. Is this kind of a common problem with baraminology in general, right?
I mean, right. So the thing one, I think you're exactly right, that it's the same problem I just described, but the other way, where if you pick a specific sequence, you're going to get nice, like it's easy to compare at one level, but you get either no differences at a different level, or you get giant differences, depending on whether you go kind of up or down in the phylogeny, right? And the giant differences and no differences are not informative. That's not useful. But I think that is a problem for baraminology, and I think you actually hit the nail on the head with this one, if I remember. I'm trying to remember the specific examples you used, but like it's where you were trying to explain like, okay, humans' own created kind, other great apes, their own created kind, then why are chimps more similar to humans than they are to gorillas and orangutans?
Is that are you talking about the example of whales, sharks, and other fish I brought up?
Oh, it might have been whales. Yes, I think that is the example I'm thinking of. And I really liked that. I actually so when you said that, it made me so happy, because actually in my evolution class, when I explain phylogenetics and how to interpret a phylogeny and how common ancestry works, the example I use is Jaws, a pet goldfish, and you. And the trick is to be able to explain why you are more closely related to your pet goldfish than your pet goldfish is to Jaws.
Right.
And it's the exact same thing you brought up, where it's time to most recent common ancestor that matters, not morphological similarity that matters.
Right.
I have a question really quick. Does Peter think that whales are fish based on the Bible?
I have no idea.
I don't think so. I would think
Hovind does. So I would also think no, but
he's a special flower. He's a special flower.
I apologize for bringing him up. I just
so the other quick thing I want to ask Dr. Dan was you actually brought up something I wanted to bring up, but I didn't feel like I should have, because would kind of make me seem like I was reading into the side chat and using that rather than kind of. But basically, you were talking about the uncorrelated sequences.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Or sorry, unconstrained sequences and how they're actually correlated.
You brought that up on your own, though. You referenced one of the papers that I use for that.
Oh yeah,
the Wobble site, the Wobble site paper, where they evaluate species separate ancestry, family separate ancestry, and common ancestry. That's one of the big papers for that. I got that from the Herman Mays debate with Jeanson from however many years ago that was.
Right. Oh, I remember that debate.
I love his debate with Ken Hovind too. I love that one.
Good. Well, here's a paper where he got the little bar chart things, the little block diagrams like that.
So could I finish my thought?
Yeah, I want to finish with Andrew's.
Just I don't want to take up too much of Dan's time here. So when you were bringing that up, because when I hear that, and I think it's a good piece of evidence, but I always think of the creationists responding with codon bias and all of that. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around exactly how it can be considered functionally neutral still in that respect, if that makes sense.
So here's the thing, and I can say this with an extremely high level of confidence because half my dissertation was on codon bias. So like I say this very confidently, even though there was a paper recently on this that reached a different conclusion. I read that paper and I read the response to that paper, and I think that study about strong selection acting on synonymous sites is not reliable.
Is that the yeast one, Dr. Day?
Yeah, it was the yeast one with the selection on the synonymous sites. I disagree with that.
Pushback on that too.
I literally I've done this. I've published on this topic. Like this is my thing. To the extent that I have a thing, this is my thing. And I will tell you that selection on synonymous sites is extremely weak outside, to the extent that it's not detectable outside of the first 20 amino acids in a protein or 20 codons in an mRNA, because in that early part of the mRNA, the 5' end, it has to do with the translation initiation rate. But outside of that, selection for codons tends to be very weak outside of specific factors. Like humans, for example, mammals don't like CG dipeptides. So you don't like a C followed by a G. So codons that end with CG are suppressed in favor of CC or CT or CA. But other than weird cases like that, selection for synonymous sites is extremely weak. So you can treat synonymous sites as unconstrained almost all of the time because
so essentially the sequence doesn't matter most of the time.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's synonymous at the extremes it can matter. So if it's either, and we don't need to talk about what is optimal versus not, but if it's super optimized or super de-optimized, you can have selection at the extremes.
A gene that's really highly expressed versus one that's not.
So high expression genes optimized for translation rate, for example, where you need a bunch of this protein for really fast for whatever reason, right? But the graph, I'm going to try to do it in the air, but you could picture this is just approximate. You could picture it as a distribution like this, where at one extreme you get selection, and then there's a lot of no selection, and then if it's highly de-optimized, you get selection the other way, right? It's that kind of shape. And the vast majority of codons are in that middle part, where there's almost no selection.
So basically, for a creationist to kind of
hang on a second, Andrew. Okay. Dr. Dan, so the 5' UTR, you said that the synonymous selection is stronger?
No, not the UTR. So it's not the untranslated region. It's immediate downstream of the start codon.
Okay. Oh, downstream.
Immediately downstream of the start codon, you tend to get selection for codon usage, and we think it has to do with translation initiation. So you can have a bunch of genes that are expressed at approximately the same level, and the codon usage will be kind of random for most of it, but the first 20 or so amino acids will have the same codon preferences for whatever reason.
Okay, good. Okay.
Well, that's kind of what you were saying earlier, which is we're not even comparing just the first portion of the gene or even a single gene for that matter. So that kind of helps.
Yeah, right. So we're looking, when you do this kind of thing, you're looking at just those third sites and you can see, okay, they should be correlated if there's common ancestry. And if there's created kind A, created kind B, even if they were created identical to each other, they're going to mutate randomly from there, and they should be uncorrelated. So that's the big thing. And you actually made that argument, and Peter brought it back to morphology, which was frustrating for me watching, because I'm like, ugh.
So if a creationist does bring this up, the last thing I'll say, if a creationist does bring this up again, would it be reasonable for me to point out, like you just said, that this codon bias isn't the same or even present for all genes or between all types of organisms? It would kind of have to be a big coincidence for it to match up in the way it does with common ancestry.
Yeah, exactly. Because codon bias, to the extent there's selection at all, it's very weak. If you have two things that are supposedly unrelated and they end up with the same codon bias, that's extremely improbable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. You're welcome.
Can I, is it okay if I add something real quick? Is that sure. I just want to say I want to agree with what Dr. Dan said, but also about you your performance here, but also that I think you've gotten a lot better at speaking online during these type of live discussions. I've seen that because I know how hard it is, and it just comes with experience. But I definitely agree that it is always important to stay focused on genetics and keep that in the back of your mind, because while I hate the question of like what's the best evidence for evolution, for me it's genetics.
Yeah. Like it's straight up. It's genetics.
And I think while it is good to explain the science in a debate, what I really like to do is to turn it back on them and explain and ask, like, within your like framework, how do you explain this? You know, based on with the created kinds, and comparing that to common ancestry, and saying, well, how can you tell the difference between a creation event and a speciation event? Stuff like that. So it's all good advice what Dan said, and I concur.
Yeah, and I think what really kills them on the phylogeny stuff is if we look at the non-conserved portions of the genome, and the phylogeny shows there, then what they have to do is they have to say that the non-conserved portions are somehow functional for the phenotype, right? But then if you get them into that blind alley, then they have to provide evidence at these non-conserved sites. And then all you have to do is show them that between two human beings, there's a massive variation in these non-conserved sites. And you have to ask them, why are the two human beings still human beings? So like, and that goes to SFT's ERV thing. He's claiming that all the ERV mutations actually contribute to the phenotype of a chimpanzee or a human. Now, okay, if that's the case, then for 48% of the genome, all the ERVs, you've got to show us how that translates into a phenotype. And,
the problem gets worse, because at a certain point, like, you have these multiple layers, as Dr. Dan was kind of alluding to, where you not only have to explain the wobble sites, you have to explain the amino acids of the proteins that aren't really critical for their function as they're folding up. You have to explain why the amino acids and the wobble sites even match up to begin with, when they kind of take on one's related to the protein translation rate and folding, the other's related to its actual shape and function. Like, it gets really complex, and the explanation has to be really contrived here.
All right, I'm gonna duck out. I just wanted to say those couple of quick things. Always a pleasure chatting with you all, and great job, Andrew.
Thank you for showing up.
All right, see you, Dr. Dan. Thanks.
Cool. Anyway, okay, should we play a little more, or
let's play like a good chunk this time.
Unfortunately, I went way ahead. Let me see if I can figure out where I was.
Okay, hey guys, just real quick, I got some food to eat here, so I'll be muted for a couple minutes.
Okay, thank you for doing that.
If you can take up for just a little bit. Thanks.
What are you having?
Fish sticks.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you to share with us, but never mind.
Do you have fish sticks?
Yeah.
Oh, my cat wants some. Can you hop over?
I could try.
Okay, as soon as you said that, Snack went running across the floor. He's like, "Oh, fish!"
I'm fighting the urge to make the South Park reference here. So.
Yeah. Oh, fight away. It's a good fight. Yeah, thank you. Okay, let me go ahead and play.
To that would be, this may or may not be a point that goes against the predictions of common ancestry. I don't think that negates the fact that there are other predictions of common ancestry that have been made, that have been met. And I just think one single line of evidence doesn't fit the bill here.
See, so this is where it seems like we're going to have an ever-moving goalpost, because often evolutionists are like, provide one example of anything that goes against evolution, and then when you provide it, they're like, well...
Yeah, but I want to point out that his example so far has failed. He's failed to actually support that example, but we will look at the papers and try to figure out what...
He says when you provide it, but what is the example? Like, you can't just... What example is he referring to?
The disparity before diversity is what was his example, and he has like 4 or 5 papers that we have to review, and I think 2 or 3 of them are by creationists, so we have to look at them pretty carefully.
We need more evidence than that. So to me, that seems to be a continual goalpost. But I think maybe we should move on to my other point as well, which you said specifically that you would expect there to be groupings from common ancestry. Could you kind of expand on that?
Right. So this goes into what we were talking about earlier, which is the groups within groups, the nested hierarchy pattern, because you don't expect it to be continuous at all levels. In particular, genetics, for example, you can have certain regions that like I was saying, are incongruent with each other. And in fact, what's interesting actually is from common ancestry, in certain cases, we can actually predict the amount of incongruence we should see in these genetic regions if the model were true. For chimps and humans, for example, this is kind of the part of the my presentation that I didn't have enough time to go over.
Okay.
But yeah, it's what was your original question again? I'm sorry.
Okay, so my point that I was trying to make with this is that from universal common ancestry, we have this gradual process of evolution where we have organisms changing through populations over very long amounts of time. And that means that organisms should be continuous, right? If we could find this, we should expect to see that basically all of life is continuous with one another, and that there aren't any groups which are discontinuous or significantly disconnected from other groups in, for example, morphospace. But as I talked about, we have...
I think we do see that because every life form on Earth shares DNA. If they had some other type of genetical language, that would be inconsistent. But I don't really get what he means by like, what did he say? Consistency in life forms? Like we do. I think we do.
Yeah,
see that.
I'm not sure if he's talking about extant species or if he's. I mean, if he's talking about the fossil evidence, right? Of course, that's going to be patchy because fossils are. But I think he's talking about extant species that he would expect to see a lamb dog. And a cat dog and a cat lamb and all the species in between. And as I explained about speciation and how that happens, I don't see where that is a problem of any kind for I shouldn't say morphospace. Well, I kind of like spaces of all kinds, Dr. Dan. I love vector spaces and state spaces, so I'm sorry.
What about liminal spaces?
Liminal. I don't know.
Just ignore me.
I know the term.
Liminal.
You mean like lakes?
Oh, no, it's like
liminal spaces.
It's hard to explain. It's like an abandoned mall or an abandoned Sears store.
Oh, okay. I don't know what the hell. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, those are cool too. I like spaces of all kinds.
Okay.
I like outer space for fuck's sake. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. I've found that all over the tree of life, whether we're looking at the felids or the canids, or as I brought up some groups of non-mammalian synapsids, we can show statistically that they are statistically significant differences in between those groups and other groups, and therefore, morphologically, they're not continuous.
I disagree.
I think you need to be careful here because it's not just similarities we're talking about. It's, like you said, the differences. And common ancestry predicts the differences that differences would be there as well.
Well, I mean, studies like this would be based on both similarities and differences.
Right, but if you're saying, okay, like you're saying they're discontinuous, are you talking about like apomorphic traits in this case? Like,
no, I'm talking specifically about discontinuous in morphospace.
What does that mean?
See, without a specific example, it's hard for me to understand exactly what you mean by that.
Okay, okay. Well, do you want to pull this up, Rebecca?
So I'm just saying there are certain groups where we would expect unique changes or traits to be there. That doesn't necessarily mean they aren't related to other groups. That's how you get this groups within groups pattern.
What I'm saying is that we can look at these groups based on morphology, and we can see that there are groups of organisms which there is statistically significant discontinuity between them and other groups of organisms.
Which ones, though?
Problematic because we should expect to see that life is entirely continuous.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about morphological distances between extant species.
But if these exist, then he should be able to be specific and tell me which specific groups of species, which animals. Because I think
he should have explained how they built this diagram. And
yeah,
I got a whole book by Todd Wood, and he's got a whole bunch of these spaces in there, or these diagrams, and he never actually gives you the data or the metric that they're using in this these morphological things. And as Dr. Dan said, when you look at the genetics, all that disappears. You start to see that that things are
right, exactly. Like as he was saying, at certain points we expect it not to be as continuous.
Well, yeah. I think as long as animal species follow monophyly, as long as an animal that gives birth to another animal, its child is a member of all the same clades that all of its ancestors were, then it's not discontinuous. So I don't know why he's saying that there are like groups of animals that are like alien to every other group of animal or species on the earth. And if they are, then tell us what they are.
I think he's suggesting that there would be a whole, so much diversity, like there would be things with 3 legs and, just all sorts of everything in between. Something like, okay, imagine between a beetle and a cat. How would you fill that morpho space, right? Oh man, that would be horrifying if they did fill that morpho space, right?
We don't see animals that are born with 3 legs in a whole population because they would be off balance and it would get selected for. That's so it's because of evolution we don't see things.
Yeah,
like that.
Like between beetles and cats, okay, there's obvious physics involved in the morphological spaces, that are possible. And there's a Lewontin paper where he talks about it, and he mentions it, and then I believe he comes up with all kinds of reasons why this is the case. And they always like print that quote. I think he refers to it here somewhere. I'm not sure where, but he shows the Lewontin quote where he says the problem for evolution is explaining why all these different animal types aren't filled, why there aren't many body plans and all that. But then Lewontin, I believe, goes on and explains why that is.
I feel like David, that's his name, right? Is his strategy here is just a more sophisticated Gish Gallop.
Yeah,
because when
you're overwhelmed with
Peter? Yeah, that's what I meant. I had the wrong name. I think what he's doing is really just a Gish Gallop, in my opinion. When you're coming with 4 or 5 papers and slides that have this much text on them, and you're being so vague about what you're actually saying, it's frustrating, because then you have to spend more time asking him to explain what he's actually saying than responding to it.
Well, his thing is anthropology, so he probably doesn't have a whole lot of genetics background yet.
Yeah, that might be true.
A lot of stuff he doesn't know. So he keeps going back to these morphology papers and these brahmanology papers. And God, those guys, if I'm not mistaken, have really gotten drubbed in recent years.
Now, now by discontinuous, does he? You know, we're talking about, you know, you were talking about lamb dog or whatever, but could he be talking about every possible combination of dog? You know, every possible combination of, you know, ratio of nozzles and snout size to leg length or whatever. It seems like there's an unrealistic expectation of some continuous curve, and each point on the curve would represent some tweak of a configuration of a dog or a cat, and that any and every given possible morphological state of a cat would be possible, even though, you know, there's a thing called natural selection that kind of filters out anything that would not be helpful.
Yeah, and then
I'm not sure what he means, unless it's an extrapolation. You know, that's the problem with a lot of views of science, is there's this tendency towards unwarranted extrapolation, and it just seems like this is too linear a way of thinking.
You see this diagram that he shows here? This is Caseidae. So I thought he was talking about extant species. That's an extinct synapsid. That Caseidae.
Barometric distance correlation graph. So yeah, he is probably
they're going
phonetic distance, I think.
Yeah, they're going from fossil evidence, basically, which kind of blows my idea that he was talking about extant species. So anyway, I think we need to read these papers, and we need to get Peter on, with the three of us, and go over this in some depth.
So you're supposed to read a baromenology paper seriously?
Yeah, well, I've been dying to, because I love the idea that there is some way that we could come up with a metric to compare phenotypes. I love the idea of complexity theory and basically measuring distances between types, right? But and I want to see what these brilliant bastards came up with, and I'm hoping that they at least come up with something interesting, right?
You're going to be disappointed, Speed, but go ahead.
Don't make me sad, Andrew. No, I'm
sorry,
excited.
I'm not trying to smash your dreams.
Trying to wreck my dreams.
I am.
Oh, I know. You
AJ has no qualms about that.
Andrew, the dream killer.
How many subs do you have now? Like 10K or 20K or what?
Me? I just hit 6,000 recently.
Nice.
What did you hit?
Congratulations.
6K.
What did you hit? 16?
6,000.
Oh, 6,000. Okay, cool. Yeah, congrats. I remember when you were just little.
Thank you.
I remember when you were little.
I give all the credit to my viewers. They are great people. Thank you.
You got a pile of them.
Watch.
Pretty cool. Anyway, I don't know. I'm kind of done with this topic.
Yeah,
so.
I think we kind of said much of what we wanted to say, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to go over and get
that's kind of his major points, is what we covered right now.
I'm just glad that Dan came on and gave us some credibility.
Yeah, I really
he really makes me feel good when he does that.
Yeah, because we're incredulous.
But I do appreciate him clarifying some things on these topics. So thanks, Dr. Dan.
The thing about 20 more synonymous amino acids after the start codon is something that I really didn't know, and I would love to know more about.
So this idea of discontinuous morph space is something that I would find in a baromenology paper.
Probably, yeah. And I think most of these papers are, though. He may have referred to one or two real actual papers.
Yeah, because sometimes with genetic sequences, but most phylogenetics nowadays, or most, should I say, standard evolutionist phylogenetics is done with these character-based methods, not the distance ones they're using here. So they're kind of using something that we don't really use much nowadays.
Yeah, we're using their terminology and not scientific terminology, or old terminology versus current terminology.
Yeah.
I just want to understand what a continuous morphological space would look like.
Yeah,
I'm
it would be
not
good if
sure.
you clarified that.
So
And if
beyond
they mean as
reasonable
something as
doubt.
ridiculous as a lamb dog, or a
Or a
wolf lamb,
crocodile.
a wolf lamb would be very self-defeating.
Or a cat beetle.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a better example what Speed said, because if you had a wolf or if you had a lamb dog, it would still be a mammal. It would still be a chordate, a vertebrate, deuterostome animal,
Yeah,
all these
that's-
things, you know.
So,
But it would just be a cross between, you know, horizontally, you know, we don't see.
here's a paper from Timothy White, David Penny, and Bojan Zhang. And we demonstrate quantitatively that it's predicted by evolutionary theory sequence.
Yeah, that was, I think, one of the first papers that kind of showed, at least to some degree, that there was
proteins.
A lot of congruence in these phylogenetic trees.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to download that one, and yeah, I'll try to get to this, but I've got a zinc finger problem.
Oh.
I'm supposed to create a nice, gentle attack on Sal Cordova's argument without saying anything, right, Scott? Nasty about
Yes, you can't say smell Cordova. I can't say.
I would not say that right now.
Yeah, and I didn't say it either. That was an example of things I'm not going to say.
Right. I got to be good. And I also got to try to be coordinated, because I would like to show you why his zinc finger thing is nothing but a preaching narrative.
Is that a sex move?
A preaching narrative?
No, a zinc finger.
Oh, it could be.
Note the comment from Creation Mist there on the screen.
Oh.
Zinc finger probably just fancied up. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's basically what it is. But I'd like to show in detail why zinc fingers are really good evidence for evolution.
Yeah, I think a visual metaphor for young Earth creationist arguments is like the cover of the movie Weekend at Bernie's, and like the guy is their argument, and they're just like puppeting around these debunked dead arguments or dressing them up like they're something else repeatedly. And then we have to keep debunking them. It gets really old.
That's a great analogy. I love it.
Also, we have like, if you look at like the reptile mammal transition, like we have like lizard dogs. So like, is that good enough for him?
Yeah, Dr. Dan, it turns out the zinc finger that he shows, for one thing, I can't find any evidence of any functionality for it. And I guess that's enough for spoilers. The other thing is it's nowhere near as specific as he says it is. So like he shows a real long, complicated thing and said, look at the pattern. Look at the pattern. How could that happen? Random chance, by random chance. And then, of course, he does his back of the envelope probability bullshit. But he put, it's basically good preaching, and you got to appreciate him for good
It's more like sleight of hand, because once again, he's throwing out probabilities to people who don't know how to analyze probabilities.
Call it proteomic preaching.
Yeah, there you
go. He does love the casino. So,
he present a big number and say, well, it's this likely that, it's more likely that, this happened than evolution. Is very impressive. It's like, wow, that's a big number, and it's got to be true. That this guy's definitely right.
Well, okay, so maybe next week I'll be able to get to this. I've got some programming to do that I'm working on too, and I'm pretty busy. And
busy.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing that I wanted to humble brag that Herman Mays follows me on Twitter.
Well, cool.
Nice.
Oh no shit! Oh my god.
I wanted to ask Dr. Dan,
Dan,
and maybe he knows, maybe not, but has he been doing debates since the one he did with Dr. Jensen? Because
as far as I can tell, but I might be wrong.
Those would be good debates to watch.
I think, didn't he do one with Dr. Charles Jackson at one point?
I think so.
Charles Jackson. Now there's
Have you guys seen his Kent Hovind debate?
No.
Yeah.
Oh my god,
I've
I
watched
highly
it
recommend
several
it. It's one of
times.
my favorites.
Yeah.
He gets so mad. He's literally like yelling at him.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You gotta look
It's,
that
it's,
up.
It's
pretty funny.
hilarious.
Herman
it's-
Mays and Hope. Oh my god.
Yeah.
We'll find that one. Anyway, yeah, I have to watch that. What else is going on? Let's see. What was
Well,
gonna
I
say?
heard there might be a rematch between Kent and King Crocoduck.
Ooh,
So
that'd be fun.
That would be
And-
fun. Here we go. Hovind versus Mays. Oh my goodness.
yes, it's so funny. And I asked SFT if he could set up a debate with me and Matt Powell, which probably won't happen, but we'll see.
Probably not.
Yeah, I've asked him
That's
before,
a
and he's turned me
slippery
down.
little fish.
I will link this in the description. I put a bunch of, I think I've got 3 papers so far in the description.
Oh,
But,
I'm also sorry, Speed, but I have to interrupt you. What I have to
No,
say is
you-
more important.
I
I'm
know
going
this.
to be whacked next week.
You're going to be what?
Oh, no.
Whacked.
You're going to be,
Whack an atheist.
oh, you're going to be whacked?
It's
Yeah.
gonna be whacked.
It's about time they whack. I thought they whacked you several times already.
Yeah.
No? But not specifically, not just you.
No,
He's gonna
no,
be.
I've been on specifically recently, but I seem to really be getting his attention lately.
Yeah.
I
He's
wonder
gonna
why.
be whacked.
This was the song
to
I made.
cubic power.
Because he showed the thumbnail of the song I made recently. I don't know if you guys have saw it, but
Oh, I think I did see your song. Was that about a month ago or so, or a while ago?
it was a couple days ago.
Oh, really?
What
It's
was
a
that?
new one.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, really?
Well, we got to see that, don't we?
Should we end it up with a song?
We'll end it with a song. I think we should end
You guys can if you want. I don't mind.
Okay. Well, you're not going to sue us for copyright or anything because you're a
No,
big
I
player
won't.
now. Really big player.
You need the
now.
link?
I'm finding one. Is it okay? If you tell me the name of it,
Just the young Hovind. That's my fake rap persona.
I think your thing's playing in the background, by the way, Speed.
What? Oh God! Stop it! Stop it! Stop that! Okay, I got it. Let me pop it up. Okay. Young Hovind Reminder Freestyle 2022.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Here we go. Let's roll this thing. 3 minutes.
This goes out to anyone in the flock. Young Hovind, I shall not want. 2022, what it do? Young Hovind, and you don't want to
You know what,
cross me.
Speed?
Got your girl
Pause
legs
it.
spread like the Red Sea.
Speed,
Stay
can you
in
pause it?
Eden, and I got my own money tree. But I
Pause it
gotta
real quick.
ask, is it a strawberry? Hate the sin, but I still love the sinner. Don't hate on young Hove, because he's a breadwinner. Jesus pieces on gold leases, sell DVDs so my bankroll increases. I still don't know about a Blu-ray disc. If you believe in evolution, then you're gonna get dissed. I stack blue faces like the Tower of Babel, and you heathens bow down all around gold cattle. God's plan, young Hovind the anointed. I like to judge others with my one finger pointed. See the future, what on earth is about to happen. The dinosaurs used to call them dragons. The Loch Ness monster is definitely real. Beretta 92 FS stainless steel. I also definitely have 4 PhDs. I'm really a doctor. Turn your head and cough, please. Young Hovind, but I'm so persecuted. I'm innocent. Unfairly prosecuted. I pay every single tax that I owe. Load up the SK and go commando. All this water on my wrist about to cause a second flood. Jesus died for me. I'm awash in the blood. You can let him save you too. You can take his free gift, but you have to be stupid to be an atheist. Hovind.
Oh, I like the pause.
Second verse for y'all in the back row. Got snipers at DAL dressed in camo. Young Hovind, I just went sicko mode. You think we got a human by kissing on a toad. Jesus or heathen, you're at a crossroads, and you better choose quick before my heater unloads. Young Hovind, I'll debate any atheist except for Aaron Ra, because I'm afraid of him. Mr. Nelson calls himself the sun god, but Aaron calls me a charlatan fraud, anti-science grifter, and a snake oil salesman, and I always have to mention 50-foot whale fin. Did I say fin? I actually meant penis. Species, family, order, class, and then genus. Young Hovind spit for 6 days, so now I must rest. Bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Young Hovind, out of touch boomer, patreon.com/atheist junior Hovind. Young Hovind, 2022, what it do? Flyer than a plane, that's why I need a ground crew. Hovind. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one.
Awesome.
That was cool.
Oh, that
nice.
creativity. It's scary.
Wow. I am impressed.
You're scary creative.
Oh, when's the album coming out?
I don't know, I forgot to say. I was trying to say maybe you should pause it because the instrumental is copyrighted, but you know.
Oh, Speed, I think the kids say, when does the album drop these days?
Oh, yeah.
Well, you should say mixtape, but I just wasn't able to monetize that video, and so your channel's not monetized anyway. Speed,
yeah,
so
no, it is.
It's not going to affect the video.
Scott, you probably noticed that I'm not a kid anymore, so.
You look less kiddish than some, sometimes than others, but yeah.
I have some older viewers, and I got comments on that video of people saying that they don't even like rap and that they enjoyed it. So,
oh yeah, yeah.
I don't like rap, and I enjoyed that.
I like some rap a whole lot, and some rap I just I don't have fucking time for it. But some of it is pretty goddamn. I do like Insane Clown Posse still. They're my favorite. I'm sorry. I apologize, everybody.
Yeah, that was weird. Why the instrumental sounded quieter than it does on the video.
I think that's really loud, unique sound configuration.
Oh fuck, my sound thing. Shit, you should have told me. I would have shut it off.
Maybe it's a good thing, because then you won't get hit.
Yeah, I'll get hit anyway because
I used a Weekend instrumental. It's one of my favorite songs by him.
Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up.
Hey, it's supposed to rain tomorrow here in Fort Worth.
Oh my God, you're gonna get rain.
We're gonna get rain. Well, I think we got rain today. It only got up to 91 today, and it's only going to get up to 88 tomorrow.
Well, shit, Death Valley got a flood, and it washed out about 50 miles of road or something.
Oh wow!
It's the apocalypse, I tell you. It's the apocalypse.
We're in the last days. I blame the gay people.
Oh, did you see the predictions of like by 2050 something? How many days per year of like 120-degree weather temperatures like Texas and other places was going to get?
Well, hopefully I'll be dead by then.
How many?
A lot. I don't have the numbers in my head, but they've done a study, and it's getting.
Well, I've lived in South Texas my whole life, and I could say by experience, it's gotten so much fucking hotter every single summer. It gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I lived down there as a teenager, and it was August, and I had to go out and get cigarettes, and I opened the door from the air-conditioned house, and it was like a wall of fucking, like it was a solid wall of heat that I didn't feel like you can walk through.
It's like opening the door to an oven.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Anyway. Okay, guys, we're going to shoot her in the head, and I want to thank everybody out there in chat for showing up. Oh, Bree's here, and shit,
hey,
people, I didn't notice. I didn't notice. I don't pay attention. I'm a bastard that way. Anyway, shoot her in the head.
Bye, all. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming out.
And goodbye,
thanks.
cool world.
Fuck Matt Powell.
Yeah.